Hola amigos, and welcome to a book review. Super cool stuff. So today, as you obviously know because you read the title, we're going to be reviewing the Folk of the Air series, which I recently read, and by recently I mean like 2 weeks ago. I was supposed to record this video way earlier, but honestly I commit to a lot of stuff, but in actuality I'm really just very lazy. But yeah, so here we are. I'm fasting right now, so I haven't been able to drink water or anything, so my voice is a little bit rocky, but I have to get this done because I don't have a good schedule and I should have done this already by now. But anyway, let's start. The first part I'm going to review the book in general, and then I'm going to go into more detail. So firstly, this is like a subjective review, it's just my opinion, so you might not agree with me, especially because I haven't read as many books as I would have liked to in my lifetime. So this is just my opinion. It's not like, it might not be what you think. It might not be what a lot of people think. Just wanted to get that out there. First thing I want to say is I loved this book. Like, if you haven't read it, I would recommend it to you because I just loved it so much. I think one of the first things that stood out to me was as soon as I started reading, like barely into chapter 1, the world building. Because I think clearly she's taken a lot of like traditional folklore about fae and like mystical creatures, but I love the way that the authors used it to build this world. It's very immersive, and as soon as I read it I could just immediately feel like I was thrown into this like fantastical world. It didn't seem like random. It seemed very well thought out and planned. With the entire series, I feel like there was nothing that seemed random or out of place or that it didn't make sense. Even the plot twists, they all made sense within the story, and it was very well thought out and well structured. Because I think a lot of the time you read a book and sometimes things don't really make sense, there's like plot holes. And the thing about me is I'm not a very good judge because I'm not very critical overly. Even if a book is not very well written subjectively, I can still enjoy a book even if it's like absolute trash, because I read for like pleasure, I read for the emotions, and I don't think you have to be a good writer to evoke emotions. Like, you can have a good storyline with subpar writing and it can still be amazing, or you can have a not so great storyline but with very good writing and it can be excellent. But this story, I think, is one, in my personal opinion, I think the writing was amazing and I think the storyline was also amazing. I think the plot was easy to follow and engaging as well. It wasn't the kind of thing where you're very confused the entire time. It made a lot of sense, and there was also lots of intertwining plots, but it didn't feel busy or messy. Like, it felt like every single plot line kind of interweaved into one very straightforward idea. But the way that it was structured, it was like there was a lot going on, but it wasn't confusing in any way, if you understand what I'm trying to say. And I just think, like, overall it was a very engaging, immersive books plural, and I really enjoyed reading it. Another thing that stood out to me a lot was the characterization. I think it's, when you write a genre like YA, it's very easy to fall into like the stereotypes of the genre, but I think that, sorry, YA is not YA fantasy, that's what I meant. It's very easy to fall into like stereotypes that other writers use, but I think this book was very original in some senses. I think there was nothing about it that I thought, wow, I've really seen this before, or this reminds me of another character. The characters feel very unique in their own right, and I also like the way that they were developed, where it doesn't seem, I think sometimes a character who is seen to be like morally grey or is supposed to be a villain, and then you're trying to develop them into seeing them as more of a hero, and it seems like kind of a volte-face, like a 180 switch halfway. But I think the way this book was written, you can see the characters develop in real time, and you can also kind of see that while they do change, they don't become different people. They're still fundamentally the same people they were, but you just kind of know them better. Or, I mean, they have slight improvements, like, for instance, maturity and strength can be improved, and like skill, but fundamentally you're still the same person, the same character. There's nothing like it's like a big change at the start of the book and at the start of the series and the end of the series. They're still the same people, and you can see that because I think a lot of the times people fall in this trap where at the start of the series someone is completely different to the end, and that's also a good character development. But I think, especially because this series takes place over such a short amount of time, it's good the way that the characters don't just become completely different people. You can still see the foundation of their character from the beginning, because that makes more sense realistically. That's what I'm trying to say. This book, it feels, even with the fantastical elements, it feels very realistic. The way people react to things, and the way, like, sorry, I'm not very good at expressing my opinions. Um, the way that people react to things that happen to them, and the way that I suppose they do things to get a reaction. Um, it seems like it makes a lot of sense. It doesn't seem out of character at all. All the things that characters do, you can see it for them. And it seems like, if you were to imagine yourself in this scenario, it seems realistic that that is the kind of things that you would resort to. And I'm being a bit vague because I'm trying not to give spoilers. Another thing that I liked was the pacing and like the progression of the story. I think sometimes stories can be so slow that you get a bit bored by the time you reach the climax, and then other times it's a bit too fast paced that you get a bit overwhelmed. I'm like, what's going on? But I like the way the story progressed. You have like the first part where there's still action and still something interesting going on, but it's not the climax. It's still like the rising tension, but there's still a lot of things that keep you engaged, but it's not so quick that you become overwhelmed by the amount of information. And then you reach the climax, and that's when things obviously get a little bit jumbled at first, but once you wrap your head around it, it's very easy to understand. I think when I was reading it, the way the plot is structured, like the plot twist, not really twist, more like maybe a little turn. But when I was reading it the first time, well, I'm the only time. I only read it once so far. But I was a little bit confused, but that's also because I skim things and then I forget to understand what I read. But once you keep going, it makes a lot of sense. And also I kind of like that it's kind of in this ambiguous sense. So then when you get the revelation at the end, it feels more, I'm thinking cathartic. That's definitely not the right word though. Satisfying, I suppose. It feels more satisfying because you have this slight confusion that makes you want to keep reading, and then at the end when you get the revelation, you're like, oh wow, it's like the shock factor, and wow, that makes sense. I saw this coming but I didn't realize it, that makes sense, right? I'm sorry, I'm the worst at explaining things. Okay, so this is the part where I give a little bit of spoilers. I tried not to give, because obviously book reviews are supposed to be impartial. So if you haven't read it, read it. It's amazing. You're gonna love it. And if you have read it, you can keep watching. And if you haven't, go read it and then come back. Or don't. You don't have to. Anyway, characters and plotline. So, firstly, let's just start off with saying Locke. I crashed out so much. But that's what I love about this book. All the characters, I could relate to them so... Well, not relate. Kind of like relate. I felt sympathetic and empathetic towards them. And I also felt like if I was in this situation, maybe I would do similar kind of things. And it's just very emotive. Like, when Jude was betrayed, I felt betrayed, I felt very connected to the character. I hate Locke. I love Jude. She's so... she's like one of my favorite female main characters ever. And you know what I love about her is that she's not like a stereotypical female main character. She's still feminine, but it doesn't like make her weaker, and she's still strong, but she doesn't have to be the kind of strong main character that is like super feminine and fragile and weak, but also a warrior at the same time. Like she has muscles and she has like curves and like she has she has personality, and she has like strength and courage in within her and externally, like in her mind, her willpower, and also her physical strength. And it's just so nice to see a female main character that's not characterized to be strong against all odds. Like you get characters who they're completely overpowered, they're so strong, they win every like fight, but then they're still fragile and small and petite and tiny, and it's not realistic, you know? Because obviously the line between realism and fantasy in a fantasy book is going to be all the way over here in the fantasy realm. But I think the thing that is important is when you're writing fantasy, to keep the characters realistic so that people can relate to them. And also because obviously she's not part of the fantasy world. She's a human like us, and it makes her so relatable because you can see yourself in her. You can see yourself as like the human, and you can see that you don't have to be perfect. But she's not perfect. I mean, she's perfect to me, but she she has flaws. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, a lot of the time these characters, they're not allowed to have any flaws. And not just her, like all the characters in the series, they have things that they need to work on, and they have problems, and I think that's good. Because I think with Jude, like, she is strong, she is determined, she is resilient, she is all those things, but she also has this softer side, and she can also be sensitive, and she can be forgiving. And even through this kind of viciousness she also has that sense of caring and love and just sensitivity. She's not completely leaning to the masculine, traditionally masculine traits, but she's also not completely leaning to the traditionally feminine traits. She's like a good in between where she can embrace the kind of femininity that we traditionally see, but she can also be strong with like and have more traditionally masculine traits. And that's what I think I love so much about her character. Is it's very realistic, and she's just objectively she's so cool. Like what girl would not want to be like Jude? Mm, I love her. She's so amazing. Seriously, in the span of one book, she goes from trying to be a knight to taking over the entire kingdom, and that is so cool. I love that. And she does not need a man. That's what I love about this character is, a lot of the times the romance feels like it's like both characters are dependent on each other to be themselves. But this one is what I like is that she doesn't need Cardan to be herself, and Cardan doesn't need her to be himself. They just like being together. Or I mean, well, they hate being together, but like on their own they're still both very strong characters, and together they don't diminish their own characters. They still are the same people, but they come together and it kind of works like a lock and key. There's not a part of either that's missing, but when they go together, it makes something beautiful, you know? What can I say? Skawabi Sabi. Also, I like the way that I'm using Carden specifically as an example because he's by far the worst. I hated him so much in the beginning. But I like the way that as you get to know him more, because obviously it's not really character development. It's always been part of his character, but Jude just didn't know that because we're getting it from her perspective. But you know that. Why am I telling you? I like that you can see kind of the sensitivity in him as well. And oh my, I just remembered, the letters? I found out that they have the letters in a copy of the book, but not in the copy I have. So I didn't read them, and I crashed out. I found them on Pinterest. I love Pinterest. But, oh my god, I crashed out when I found out that it's only a special edition. They should have it in all the editions. But anyways, we're not dwelling on that. But oh my god, what was I saying? I forgot. Yes, okay, I remember. So I like that you can still see that kind of cruelty within him. Like, he's not perfect, but you can also see the kind of things that led to him being like that. And it's not a justification for his actions, is what I'm trying to say, you know? Like, I feel like a lot of the time you have these characters and they're just immediately characterized as so villainous and vicious and cruel. And then you kind of try to backtrack it and be like, oh, but this is what made them like this, so that's why they're okay. But in this case, it doesn't feel like it's a justification for his action. It's more just it's like an explanation, like a reasoning behind why it might be like this. And the reason it doesn't feel like justification is because, again, I love Jude so much. She is not the better person. She is fundamentally, like, she is arguably worse. And that's what she said she was going to be. She said she was going to be worse. That's so cool. She's so cool. But I just like that she is not like this perfect, pure person, and she's the good that brings the good out of him. They are both very morally, like, I wouldn't say completely ethically wrong, but morally they aren't in the right all the time. Both of them are pretty evil in some senses. Like, not completely evil, but they do evil things. And I think that's what makes it better. It's like there's no justification for these actions. It's like this is what happened to make him act like this. But everyone in the book acts like this. Like, they all act in different ways. That's what I'm trying to say. Every character is cruel and vicious and malicious, but they all do it in different ways. And I think that's what really stands out to me, is that none of the characters are really good. I don't think you could look at any character and say, yeah, they're ethically good, morally good. Even maybe the little kid, Oak, but even then he was a kid, so you can't really judge him. But other than that, I feel like none of the characters ever did anything completely right or completely wrong. And that's what I think is I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think that stood out to me because a lot of the times you have characters where they're just completely in the right or completely in the wrong, and that just doesn't seem very nuanced or realistic. It seems a little bit cheap, I suppose. I mean, it feels rude to say that, but it is a little bit, unrealistic, I suppose. I feel like at this point I'm sort of just rambling, but I really don't want to miss any points because I just love this book so much. And I want to make sure I have everything I have to say about it is said in this video. I should have wrote a script. I'm so dumb. Okay, so I guess in conclusion, I loved the story, I loved the plot lines, I loved the world building and the characterization. I loved all aspects of this book. And I would recommend it. If you haven't read it, you should read it. And if you have read it, go read it again. We all know you want to. I think if you love fantasy and you want to see a less conventional story that still feels familiar, so it's not completely a new topic or a new outlook or a new perspective, but it feels very different from the rest of the genre. I think it's a good you know what I'm trying to say, right? I can't think of words on the top of my head. Now that the camera's on, I can't think of any words to say. Yeah, so out of 5 stars, I would honestly rate it a 5, but that doesn't mean much coming from me because I give almost everything I read a 5. I enjoy everything. But I think even, if you don't like books that are not well written, you'll still like this book because it is well written. Because me, I've already said it earlier, I can read anything, whether it's well written or not. But this book, it is well written and it does have an engaging storyline, engaging plotline, engaging characters. So I think a lot of more people a lot more people will enjoy it. And yeah, so I'd give it 5 out of 5 stars. Still doesn't mean a lot coming from me, but yeah. And I guess that's probably all I have to say. So hopefully that maybe helped your understanding of the series. Um, and you could understand what I was trying to say. I'm not the most articulate. I'm not very smart. But yeah, thank you for watching, and maybe I'll see you again. Okay, thank you. Bye.